The battlefield, bodies of fallen warriors, arrows, swords, and fire are all around. Suddenly, a loud voice of a man is heard, who orders the others to kill all enemies. However, soon the man and the warriors behind him realize that their position is not very enviable. They are surrounded. A small handful of people are standing almost close to each other, and dozens of soldiers with spears in their hands are around them. They are not even allowed to move, because they are poked at them with sharp spearheads. Suddenly, some unknown force breaks into this fight and everything changes dramatically. The advantage is now on the other side. The soldiers who surrounded the people fly apart. Some still manage to stand on their feet. They are amazed and wonder who did it. The man, who had been in a difficult situation before, was now smiling and rejoicing at the appearance of the one who saved him. The rest of the soldiers were also in a good mood, because they had just been saved. The man who had just come to the rescue was now facing the enemy with a sword in his hand. This man's name was Lai Yun, and he's a time traveler. The place he was in now was called Shenju. Getting ready, Lai Yun ran towards the enemies, rushing at them. This is a Jade country, one of the 4 greatest states. After he arrived here, his first task was this uprising. In general, he had absolutely no difficulties with this, nothing complicated at all. The enemies were now flying apart from the blows that he inflicted one after another. He was chosen as the leader because he is a master of his craft. Now Lai Yun was standing in the middle of the battlefield, surrounded by fallen enemies, whom he quickly and easily dealt with. He was nicknamed the Immortal. However, all these events took place 2 whole years ago. To date, Lai Yun is the most ordinary person, because literally last year all the remaining rebel forces were disbanded. A new ruler ascended to the throne. It remained only to hope that now all people will be able to live in peace and quiet. Lai Yun has the most ordinary, in his opinion, wife. Her name is Zhu Zhuli. She is very beautiful, although her family does not have the best past. There was a plate of treats on the table where the man and his wife were sitting now. The girl told him to eat, because they had nothing else anyway. Lai Yun obediently ate, smiling, while his wife watched him devour the food. He said that it was very tasty and no worse than what was served in the palace. The girl looked at him seriously, saying that it goes without saying. She said that he had never tasted Imperial cuisine, so she asked how, in that case, he could know what dishes were served there. Lai Yun, eating the treat, replied as if he was just sure that his wife cooks much better than in the palace. There were crumbs of food around his mouth on his smiling face. Leaning on her hand and listening to what her husband said, the girl told him, in that case, to eat on. Lai Yun went on to say that Zhu Zhuli's cooking is not inferior to the Imperial cuisine. This is the kind of life Lai Yun has always dreamed of. An ordinary wife, the same as himself, everything is exactly like that. His meal was interrupted by the fire he saw. Something was happening on the street, and it went beyond the ordinary life that he imagined. Rebels appeared on the street, burning torches and swords in their hands. They expressed their dissatisfaction with the ruler, asked for God's blessing, and proclaimed the name of some immortal. Ordinary people on the streets ran away in fear when they saw these rebels. Lai Yun was surprised that these guys were staging a rebellion again. He was interested in why they were doing this. The street was in chaos. The buildings were engulfed in flames. People fled in fear and panic in all directions. The rebels dealt with ordinary people, leaving behind only corpses. People were calling for help. Lai Yun watched his wife, who was clearly worried about what was happening. She tightly squeezed her hand. Her face seemed stern. The guy thought only that these rebels, who had raised an uprising, had frightened his wife with their actions. For this he mentally scolded them. The guy approached the girl and picked her up in his arms. He told her not to be afraid of anything. Since he is next to her, he will not let her get hurt for anything. The building they were in was also on fire. Lai Yun took into his own hands the salvation of his life and the life of his wife, because now he was taking his wife away from here, too. The girl in his arms complained that the rebels only do what they eliminate parasites. Lai Yun was smiling nervously. It's so insulting when your wife scolds you. How many words have already flown to his address before? They told him to choke on water and die. They said that he had been hooliganism all day. They warned that sooner or later he would get what he deserved. Lai Yun asked his wife not to worry, because the previous ruler was too incompetent, which is why his reign had so many uprisings. It was interesting what the new emperor was like. Is it really as bad as the previous one? Frowning, Zhu Zhuli only looked at her husband with displeasure, thereby making him think that he had done something wrong. Lai Yun was running, holding his wife in his arms. Everything was ablaze. The fire was quickly engulfing everything around. Suddenly he stopped, looking ahead questioningly. Outside the gate, right in front of him, there was a whole crowd of the same rebels who had raised this uprising. They were masked and armed, and now they were all staring at him. Lai Yun lowered his wife from his arms so that she got to her feet. He hid her behind him, shielding her with his back, and asked her not to be afraid. He suddenly pointed his finger at the crowd, saying, "Emperor." The rebels stared at him in silence, not understanding anything. One of them finally asked what this guy was talking about and where he was looking. Lai Yun raised his hands and addressed the rebels in a friendly manner, calling them brothers. He said that if they want to discuss something, they should remember that peace is a priority. He himself thought that these rebels were fakes. Don't they understand the password? One of the rebels said that there is no Kai in these two, they are just ordinary people. Now it remained to decide what to do with them. The rebel, who was apparently in charge, ordered to kill these people immediately because he was disgusted by just looking at them. After that, he added that they should leave the girl alive, since he was going to enjoy her later. The rebels obeyed the order and rushed at Lai Yun. He was thinking that these people don't even feel the airflow, they must be just second-rate thugs. Zhu Zhuli grabbed her husband's hand so that they could run together. She rushed to the side, and Lai Yun did not immediately realize this, turning in her direction. It was impossible to make a lot of noise, because Lai Yun could be exposed, and he could not allow this, so he decided to act slowly and as little as possible. Energy condensed around his fingers into a small ball. He used his power against the enemies chasing them. The street was consumed by fire and smoke from this fire. There were almost no people anymore. Lai Yun, who directed his power at the enemies, achieved an excellent result. They all flew to the sides. Even the clothes on their bodies were torn to shreds in the place where they stood earlier. There was only a huge footprint on the ground, scattered stones and smoke. That's done. The guy fell to the ground with his wife. When they got up, the first thing Lai Yun did was put his hand on the girl's shoulder and asked if she was okay, and added that they would be helped if anything happened. There were footsteps. Dozens of people from the Imperial Guard quickly rushed to the scene. The chief of them ordered the others to carefully inspect everything and grab all the people in the area, checking them in turn. Smiling stupidly, Lai Yun said that prison was waiting for him. The head of the Imperial Guard sank to the ground in front of the footprint that was left after Lai Yun's strike. He concluded that a very hard stone instantly turned into powder. Frowning, he began to suspect that it was the same person. He stood up and turned towards Lai Yun and Zhu Zhuli. The girl stood and was absolutely calm. Just looking at her somehow shocked the man. He ordered men and women to be interrogated separately. 2 men took Lai Yun away. He waved to his wife, saying that everything was fine and that she had nothing to worry about, because he would return to her very soon. The girl was left alone. The head of the guard and his men stood in front of her. He stood silently for a while, looking at Zhu Zhuli, and then suddenly everyone bowed in front of the girl, addressing her as Your Majesty. The head of the guard asked the girl if she was shocked. The man was standing in front of her, talking about something while people were being arrested for questioning. Looking at a scroll, the girl asked Chen Hai if this was the person who was at the Lantern Festival. The man replied that everything is true, everything is true. She was definitely at that party, but she didn't realize then who did it. Chen Hai reported that he had identified the rebels. According to him, they were bandits from the capital, and someone hired them to arrange this performance. He began to say that if the girl's guesses were correct, then he didn't have time to finish. The girl frowned at him, asking if he wanted to say that her family was involved in this. Chen Hai said that she had only recently ascended to the throne. Family is very important. Zhu Zhuli was thinking about the uprising and about her family. She also wondered where the leader of the rebel army would hide, since he was from the capital. Lai Yun himself was in the 6th building at that time. Now he was released and he could leave. They told him to take his time and come more often. He thanked these people with a smile and waved his hand to them. However, he found it strange that these people were so helpful. Why would I? They didn't even interrogate him, but instead he was well fed with delicious and varied food. It was dark outside. Zhu Zhuli was standing with her eyes down, thinking about something. Lai Yun was approaching her. Seeing the guy, the girl, looking at him, asked how it happened. Lai Yun smiled, apologizing for making her wait so long for his return. He came closer and took her hand. They walked together down the street between the houses and talked. The girl said she thought Lai Yun would want to clean up. There has been a lot of unrest in the capital lately, so we need to be more careful. The guy asked if she was talking about uprisings, but she spoke not only about the uprisings, but also about the family, because the rebels were sent by her. Their goal is to shake the foundations and achieve the greatest benefits. But the girl recently ascended to the throne and was afraid to get involved with these people. Lai Yun was amazed that she knew so much, just like a real empress. It seemed amazing to him. Turning away, Zhu Zhuli said that she had heard about it from the officer who interrogated her at 6 doors. Suddenly, the attention of the young people was attracted by a sound made by a woman. They both looked in her direction. She turned to her husband and cried. He was lying on the ground, and she was sitting next to his body and continued to call him. Zhu Zhuli suddenly said that she and Lai Yun would be separated if anything really happened. But Lai Yun hurried to calm her down, squeezing her hand tightly. He told her not to worry, because he was nearby and this was the safest place in the whole wide world. They looked into each other's eyes with fascination. Zhu Zhuli was a little embarrassed, and then pulled away and continued walking, asking if he meant that he himself was safe. Her gaze suddenly became stern. She was thinking that, apparently, she needed to deal with the uprisings and the family, and even take care of this guy. Looking at the back of the departing girl, he thought that the Empress was afraid to get involved with the family. He decided that in that case he would take care of it himself. He would do it himself. The next day, Lai Yun and Zhu Zhuli were walking down the street. Rumors spread quickly among the people. They said that the Huang family was abducted yesterday. Even more, someone heard that the culprit depicted the face of the head of the family and his wife. People have concluded that they have huge problems. Lai Yun glanced at the girl who was walking next to him. She was smiling a little. He said he thought she was in a good mood. It sounded more like a question. Zhu Zhuli said she enjoyed watching the suffering of the rich. Lai Yun looked at his wife with fascination and thought that this girl was simply incomparable. She, in his opinion, is beautiful no matter what. His life has become quiet and peaceful again. No fights and intrigues. Everything is as calm as ever. He was looking at the people on the street. They were simple people without any whims. Suddenly 2 people caught his attention. Were they masked rebels? A woman and a man. The woman asked the man, grabbing his shoulder, to find out everything about the uprising. And he asked to let him go. Where did they come from? His attention was attracted by the shape of the girl. Her breasts were very large. Lai Yun stared. Zhu Zhuli, standing behind him, pierced her husband with her gaze. He asked her not to look at him with such suspicion, but she was still unhappy. They were talking when suddenly Lai Yun turned towards that girl. She greeted him, saying that today was full of hope, and extended her hand to him. Lai Yun was taken aback. He felt a little uncomfortable. She still uses that embarrassing greeting. If only he knew. He suddenly shouted that he would be counted among the 6 doors if she spoke like that. Besides, she revealed her identity, so why does she need a mask in that case? The girl asked him to be quiet, saying that she did not need a mask to hide her face. Even if the ruler finds out, she will not be put on the wanted list. The guy thought that she would still be wanted. Lai Yun suddenly felt that there was something behind him. Zhu Zhuli was standing there by herself. She looked intimidating. Lai Yun turned to the masked girl again, saying that it seemed to him that he had seen her somewhere before. He asked her to take off her mask and show her her face. Didn't she owe him the rent money? The girl, who raised her hands up, looked questioningly at the interlocutor while he pointed at her with his finger. Suddenly, the girl in the mask pointed her finger somewhere to the side, saying to look there, because there is a beautiful lady taking off her panties. Shocked and frowning, Lai Yun and Zhu Zhuli looked in the direction indicated. The masked girl rushed away, and Lai Yun shouted at her back that it was definitely her. The girl flashed her heels, leaving only dust behind her. However, she came across a stone on the way, for which she stumbled and could not avoid falling. The escape failed. Sitting on the ground, the girl held her head, saying that this fall caused her pain. Her hands and clothes were covered in dust. She opened her eyes, seeing a man in front of her. Lai Yun and Zhu Zhuli had already managed to approach her while she was sitting in place and moving away from what had happened. The girl immediately jumped up, landing on her knees, and began to touch the ground with her head, begging the Mr. Owner to let her go. Lai Yun remembered her name. I think her name was Lai Zhu. He asked if she was from the rebel army. Lai Zhu replied that she was not one of the rebels, but she would soon be one of them. According to her, when she joins the rebels and meets with that person, she will definitely be able to pay for rent. Zhu Zhuli asked which person the girl was talking about. Lai Zhu spread her hands at her sides, starting to talk about that person. His strategic approach and economic policy are extremely outstanding. He is the incomparable leader of the rebel army, Mr. Immortal. That's the man she was talking about, and she was determined to find him at all costs. She added that her father had given her a portrait of this immortal before he died, so she was just going to look at this portrait and find that person. Lai Yun was surprised. Does she have a portrait? He absolutely destroyed absolutely everything that was connected with him. If this continues, his wife will find out that he is the leader of the rebels. Zhu Zhuli was thinking that all the records related to this immortal had mysteriously disappeared. This situation was her chance. She wanted to know what the bastard looked like. Lai Yun showed a portrait of this man, saying that he was still their great leader, although he looked a little crooked. Recently, the girl has been asking if this person has been seen by all passers-by, so now she decided to ask Lai Yun and Zhu Zhuli about it. Lai Yun wondered if he should be grateful or disappointed, and where did they see that face at all. Zhu Zhuli was also thinking about whether the rebel leader really looks like this. Suddenly, a commotion arose among the people, attracting the attention of all three. They said it was an uprising, that the rebels were advancing. Lai Zhu, hearing about the uprising, hid behind a twig, pretending that she was not there. She insisted that she wasn't here. Lai Yun asked, is some kind of twig her absolute disguise? And this girl must have a problem with her head. People passing by kept repeating that the rebels were in the city now. Lai Yun looked at these people with interest. There were also rumors that the rebel leader was also there, that perhaps the legendary immortal had been captured. However, people were sure that the warriors of the 6 doors would never have captured him. Frowning, Lai Yun wondered if any of the rebels had been caught or not. A red sign of some institution with a gold inscription. Inside, the man was greedily devouring food. A beautiful girl sat down with him, asking if he had mistaken their establishment for an ordinary restaurant, and then added that their family would serve him as he pleased. The man asked if the girl would help him find someone. She replied that, of course, she was ready to help. The man, smiling all over his mouth, said that he needed to find one man. All the girls in this institution were shocked by what they heard. Why does this man want to find some other man? Suddenly the doors of the establishment opened. All the girls stared excitedly at the man who had come inside and was now walking in their direction. This guy shouted, Yunjie Yune. And then he said, holding out his weapon, clutched in his hand, that Zhang Hu should be arrested and sentenced to responsibility by Imperial order. He demanded that he surrender. A man from the rebels got up from the table where he had previously been sitting and eating. He turned around and headed towards this guy, who seemed just tiny compared to Zhang Hu. The guy immediately warned the man that he should not rebel. He held onto his sword, as if to make it clear that he would use the weapon at any moment. The man towered over this guy and started to say something. He seemed intimidating, but suddenly this huge man fell to his knees, hugging the boy, rejoicing that they finally came to arrest him. He said that he had been waiting for him for a long time and asked him to take him away as soon as possible. Tears sprang from his eyes. Zhang Hu complained, saying he couldn't do it anymore. He said he was giving up and didn't mind being taken away. He himself called for the guy to be arrested. The boy shouted for the man to detach himself from him and stop wiping snot on his leg. Zhang Hu was accompanied by 2 men. His hands were shackled. The crowd was watching what was happening. Zhang Hu smiled and mentally addressed the leader, intending to go to him. A man would never have thought that everything would turn out like this. Something happened 7 years ago. Zhang Hu was a doctor. Once a woman came to his office with a complaint about her hand. She scratched it. Zhang Hu assured that there was nothing wrong with this and asked to provide him with a solution to this issue. However, he just put in a little more effort. It so happened that the woman was screaming in pain. Her arm was somehow broken. The doctor said that everything was fine and asked not to be afraid because he would help. But his help did not bode well. It so happened that he was put on the wanted list. After all, he was going to join the rebels until he fell from the sky. At first, Zhang Hu did not understand what had happened, because this man just fell from the sky. It seemed that he was sent by God himself. After getting up, this guy complained of pain and said that he seemed to have broken something. Zhang Hu and the other people were surprised that this person was still alive. The man said that the guy was fabulously lucky, because he is a doctor and will gladly help someone who fell from the sky. The boy then looked at the man and agreed to his offer of help. This man survived and became their leader thanks to him, Zhang Hu. The rebel's heart skipped a beat when he saw someone. Lai Yun was standing in the crowd, directly opposite Zhang Hu. So the rumors were true, their leader is actually in the capital now. Suddenly, the sharp blade of the sword was right at the man's neck. The guy who arrested him was coming from behind. He glowered at Zhang Hu and asked where he was looking. Was there an accomplice in the crowd? Confused, Zhang Hu said that the guy had misunderstood everything. He turned to him, explaining that he simply could not look the other way when such a cute guy was standing next to him. But Yunjie Yuni didn't believe him. He demanded not to pretend and asked what Zhang Hu had forgotten in this city. Zhang Hu continued to stand his ground. He said he was only here because someone rich and handsome lives here. The man, according to him, likes young guys like the one who arrested him. The guy couldn't restrain himself and shouted for this pervert to be quickly removed from here. They decided to take the man away, and as he was leaving, he shouted that he would wait for this cute boy in prison. Lai Yun already knew that Zhang Hu had let himself be arrested. Suspicions began to be laid that this man was just looking for him. Zhu Zhuli, who had been standing next to her all this time, asked what her husband was thinking about. He looked at her affectionately, saying that about nothing. He just suddenly wondered if she would have followed him if something had happened to him. The girl turned around and walked away, saying briefly and clearly, no. The guy was looking at her back. He accepted her answer and said it was her right. Zhu Zhuli turned around and explained she meant she wouldn't let anything happen to him. The day came to an end. Night came. A man moved like a shadow across the roofs of buildings. He jumped from one roof to another, moving stealthily and silently. The guards on the ground did not see or hear him. Lai Yun ended up on the roof near the prison. It was a revelation to him that this prison is quite large. He was looking at the gate and at the people below. The guy said he came to see the sights. This prison was the most guarded place in the entire capital. According to legend, the man who came here to rescue a friend had a broken leg even when he was at the gate. The guards walked behind their boss and asked him if it was true that no one would ever be able to escape from this prison. The boss replied that it was true. He said that he would be a puppet master if someone could still make a successful escape from here. Sitting in his cell, Zhang Hu opened one eye. He said that he was sure that they would come for him. He turned to the leader, whom he had not seen for a long time, and he was standing with a satisfied face opposite the rebel. The guy laughed, waving his hand, saying that they really haven't seen each other for a long time. He was glad to see the bearded one. Zhang Hu said that the leader, of course, had no difficulty getting into this prison, as expected from someone he had once saved. Lai Yun pondered, asking when Zhang Hu had saved him. I completely forgot. Then he asked if it was when he had just been transported here. The guy said that after such treatment, which Zhang Hu gave him, he was forced to lie in bed for another 3 months. It is worth thanking the heavens that his body did not let him down and he was able to survive. Crossing his arms over his chest, Zhang Hu mumbled that it was just an accident. Lai Yun held up his index finger, declaring that thanks to that accident, he was still able to discover something. After recovering, Lai Yun discovered that he could absorb Kai and improve his body. Thanks to this ability, Lai Yun can become stronger, but she also has a dangerous drawback. And the stronger he became, the more clearly this flaw manifested itself. His hair was starting to fall out. Lai Yun said that it is worth thanking Zhang Hu's secret, which prevents hair loss. Otherwise, Lai Yun would never have been able to marry such a beautiful lady as his wife. Zhang Hu asked him about his wife, and then said that he had seen her and she was very beautiful. The guy was incredibly lucky. But now, according to the man, it was time for them to finish. Lai Yun turned around and was about to leave, saying that his visit had come to an end. Now it was time for him to go back to his wife. She was really waiting for him at home. Zhang Hu demanded that he come back, because they had not finished yet. The man said that, frankly, he practices martial arts, but thinks he won't live long. That's why he decided to turn to Lai Yun, because he is, after all, the strongest person. Lai Yun said that he was doing some research in the field of medicine. There is a mantra consisting of 4 words that can cure absolutely all diseases. According to the guy, it will definitely help to recover. A smile immediately shone on Zhang Hu's face. He asked the chief to tell him more about what was going on. Lai Yun, drawing a heart with his hands, said only 4 words, drink more hot water. Zhang Hu drooped, because he was counting on something else. Lai Yun walked away from the jokes and said he was special. He took out an object from under his clothes, apologized, saying that he could not help, but there was something he could give to a man. He spent all his money on it. Zhang Hu, delighted, scratched his head and said that it was very embarrassing. Lai Yun showed what he had brought with him. The bearded man drooped again. They were pampushki. Were they really worth all the guy's money? Lai Yun seriously said that they cost him 5 pennies. He borrowed them from his wife, and tomorrow he would have to pay 10 times more for them. Zhang Hu said in annoyance that their leader had become henpecked. While eating the food that the chief brought, Zhang Hu said that it was nice to see him before he died. They sat on each other and ate dumplings. Lai Yun asked the man not to talk like that, because with such a beard, he should definitely survive. Zhang Hu suddenly became serious and started talking. According to him, there is one more thing about which you need to be as careful as possible. Since the new ruler has only recently ascended the throne, the palace is still very weak, so eminent families will take advantage of this and arrange intrigues, especially for the Huang family. Not only are they linked to the rebel army, but they also seem to be plotting something. Zhang Hu had a bad feeling. He dared to assume that this would affect the entire capital. Lai Yun suddenly heard someone approaching the camera. He stood up, saying that he would take note of everything that was said by the man, and pulled a mask over his face. At the same moment he disappeared, leaving the bearded man alone with himself. Then the door opened. Yunjie Yuni walked in. He walked up to the bars and, looking down at the rebel, asked if someone had just been here. Zhang Hu seemed very overjoyed. He asked if the boy was looking for an excuse to be alone with him. According to him, he is very happy. The guy didn't answer anything. He became gloomier than a cloud. At this time, Lai Yun was already running away with all his might. He hopped on the roof, wondering if the Huang family was really up to something. So far, he didn't know all the details, he had very little information, so he needed to get as much information about it as possible. Jump after jump, he was getting further away from prison. Anxious thoughts did not leave him. The claim to the power of aristocratic dynasties will only gradually increase. What can be done about it? The most important thing is that nothing interferes with his life, and even more so he would not want his wife to be involved in all this. He was very curious about what the Huang family was up to and what he could do about it. The sun shone brightly over the Longshan Temple, the most important temple. There were a lot of people here. The abbot of this temple is very old. He is one of the most respected persons. Master Kongwen helps beggars all year round, thanks to which he has created the most powerful intelligence network. Thus, this person has the largest amount of information in the city. Information reached him that the rebel leader had done something at night when he sneaked into the prison. The man who told this to the abbot said that on that day the guard smelled very strongly of something. He almost threw up himself. Then Lai Zhu appeared near the temple, which was very noisy. She turned to Mr. Kongwen because she had heard that he must know what she wanted to know, where the head of the rebels was hiding. She needed to know that. The girl was sitting on her knees in front of the old man, waiting for an answer. He said that she was not the first to ask him this question. He swore to God that he didn't know the answer to it. Kongwen's eyes bulged out when he saw the guy waving at him and smilingly greeting him. This guy was Lai Yun, who had just arrived at the temple. Kongwen was silent and mentally asked God for help. Lai Zhu, seeing a person she knew, or rather her landlord, asked where he was from. Lai Yun wasn't alone, he came here with Zhu Zhuli. The guy explained that after hearing that the local wish tree is very effective, he and his wife decided to come here and try to make a wish. Lai Zhu asked Sister Zhu in surprise if she really believed it. Kongwen, hearing Lai Zhu address this girl, became a little tense. He connected her with the Huang family. The old man was watching the three people who were talking to each other. Zhu Zhili was calm. Kongwen recognized the Empress in the girl and now did not understand at all what was going on, especially since she was Lai Yun's wife. The old man was dumbfounded. When the new ruler ascended the throne, Kongwen was at the ceremony. Is this all a dream? Is the great head of the rebels married to the Empress herself? Lai Yun said that she had already made a wish, so she was going to leave. She waved goodbye as she walked away. The abbot, who was standing behind the married couple, almost cried because he did not understand what was going on here at all, and did not hesitate to talk about it out loud, thereby attracting the attention of the spouses. They turned to the old man, asking what he was talking about at all. He hurried to explain that nothing was happening, because people tend to talk nonsense when they get old. The reaction of these two made the old man wonder if they even knew each other. Kongwen and the young people came to the Longshan Temple's wish tree. The old man said that everyone says that this wish tree works well, so that's why so many people come here, it's all thanks. Lai Yun watched with a smile as three huge men stood side by side and told one person that his path was getting dark. A catastrophe was waiting for him in the near future, and the desire tree would help to get rid of the impending threat. The men continued to insist, this is a limited offer, you need to protect the whole family. If you use the wish tree, you will not have to suffer anymore, there is no deception here, so what to expect? The person to whom all these words were addressed gave up under the onslaught of men, and mumbled something unintelligible, and then bought 10 wishes. He handed over 100 coins and asked me to keep the change for myself. Lai Yun thought that no one dares to refuse when the monks are so insistent on buying. There was a tablet in the guy's hand. The old man said that you need to write your wishes on these tablets, after which you should hang them on the wish tree. Lai Yun and Zhu Zhuli stood next to each other and looked at this big tree. It was all completed with plaques with other people's wishes. Coming closer to the abbot, Lai Yun said that there was actually something else he would like to ask him. He suddenly became serious, asking a question that interested him. What are the Huang family members up to? The old man replied that he didn't know much about it, but there was something he could tell. If Lai Yun wants to clear things up, then he should go to the Tensheng grain store. That was the old man's advice. Lai Yun, smiling, thanked him for what he had said, and returned to his wife with the tablet. Kongwen watched them from the side. It seemed to him that they had a very interesting marriage. How did they manage to get married at all? If one day they reveal each other's identities, what will they choose? Although they are not strangers to each other, but they will have to face each other in battle. Kongwen was now standing near the wish tree and looking at the new wishes that had appeared on it. It seemed wonderful to the old man. Just beautiful. The wish tree, on which hung a lot of plaques, now also kept the plaques of this married couple. From the tablet hung nearby, Lai Yun's wish was that he wanted him and his Yuina to stay together forever. Zhu Zhuli wrote on her tablet that she wanted her husband's wish to come true. Zhang Hu was tightly bound with metal chains. Chen Hai stood in front of him with Yunjie Yuni and said that he was asking him for the last time about where the leader of the rebel army was hiding. Zhang Hu replied that he did not know where the leader of the rebel army was hiding, perhaps in the sea, at a depth of 12,000 miles, and then asked if he had already told them everything in detail. Yunjie Yuni showed Zhang Hu the scroll and asked if that was what he was talking about now. Zhang Hu wrote that the leader of the rebel army is just great when danger is coming. He can turn into a 300-meter mech, owns many different ninja techniques, almost like a king, and besides all this, he also has his own harem. For evil he is an enemy, but he can also be a good friend. Yunjie Yuni asked what kind of nonsense Zhang Hu was talking about. Zhang Hu said that with his IQ level, he would never understand it. In fact, Zhang Hu just said absolutely everything that came into his head, because he always liked to bluff. Yunjie Yuni told Mr. Chen Hai that, in his opinion, they should have already resorted to cruel torture. Zhang Hu said that he was not at all afraid of this and that they could try to torture him if they wanted. Chen Hai approached Zhang Hu and quietly said that now they would bring some wolf here and drug him with something. Zhang Hu sweated a little and beads of sweat appeared on his face. Then he shouted that he had already told them everything he knew himself. Chen Hai asked him to start by telling him who brought him the buns he was eating. Zhang Hu asked how Chen Hai knew about the fact that he ate buns, because there were not even crumbs left from them. Chen Hai said that he had conducted an examination of his tests and found out everything. Yunjie Yuni was very surprised and said that Mr. Chen Hai really does not miss absolutely any details. Zhang Hu shouted that they were all just crazy here. Chen Hai said that there were no buns among the food that Zhang Hu was fed here, which means that someone brought them to him, and the person who is able to enter the prison unnoticed and then leave it in the same way is none other than the leader of the rebels. Then Chen Hai asked again where the leader of the rebel army was hiding. From Zhang Hu's expression, Chen Hai immediately understood everything and told him that his expression had betrayed him. When Chen Hai was already leaving, Zhang Hu shouted after him that if he were in his place, he would not be so fixated on Zion Yi. Chen Hai asked what Zhang Hu meant by saying such things. Zhang Hu asked why the aristocrat family has been so open lately. They probably already have enough people gathered to challenge. He said that some people in their army are really crazy, and he doesn't know what will happen if they stop restraining them. Chen Han frowned and glowered at Zhang Hu. After that, Chen Hai went to the Imperial Palace to see Empress Zhu Zhuli. Chen Hai said that today, since Zhang Hu was given the right buns, the one they are looking for doesn't have much money. However, the leader of the rebel army did not enter the prison for the sake of robbery, which means that probably new attacks are not planned yet. Then Chen Hai added that he had heard that it was rumored that the leader of the rebel army had released all the rebels in order to live a very ordinary life. Perhaps he had a wife or children, and that was why he could not do such dangerous things. Chen Han said that, according to the prisoner, the rebels may have entered into a conspiracy with the aristocracy, but without their former leader. The Empress said that AI King did a great job, but got into a fight with Qinan. Chen Hai asked who Her Majesty was talking about. The Empress replied that he was just a young magician who specialized in complex and complicated cases. Chen Hai thought that he hears this story every day and began to doubt his existence. Chen Hai then bowed to Her Majesty Zhu Zhuli and said that he would try very hard to repay her for everything. The Empress thought that the head of the rebel army has no money. He is married and wants to live a normal life. It's too uncertain. Her Lai Yun is just like that. At this time, Lai Yun came to the very place that the monk had told him about. Lai Yun knew perfectly well that he couldn't use brute force, but just had to try to slip in unnoticed. If he gets into trouble, then his wife may have problems. Lai Yun stood on the roof of one of the houses and watched everything that was happening on the street. A woman who was selling on the street was approached and told to move the counter as it could interfere with passers-by. Then Lai Yun thought that no matter what world entrepreneurs are in, they will always be afraid of the authorities anyway. Tenshin Store, the place that the abbot of the temple spoke about. Lai Yun went inside and began to look around. He was thinking that it seemed that something was about to start. An excited man ran into the store. He told the manager that it was really bad. He came closer and whispered that the people from the 6 doors were heading straight here. The manager was surprised. He handed the man a book and told him to take it and hurry away from here, and then handed the book to the owner. The man with the book was running away, as he was told. Lai Yun followed closely behind him. He was smiling a little, looking at the back of the fleeing man. People from 6 doors came to the Tencheng store. The chief ordered them to block everything here and prevent anyone from leaving this place. No one should leave. They were supposed to search everything here, and in no case were they supposed to ignore suspicious places. So they did, even looked into barrels of rice, but nothing suspicious was found here. Chen asked who exactly reported the information they received. He was told that the whistleblower said that he had sent a secret Imperial agent here. He himself called himself a Zero detective. Chen thought about it. A secret Imperial agent. Is that what Her Majesty ordered? Suddenly, something that was lying on the floor caught his attention. They were some kind of orange pebbles. Looking at them, the man wondered what they were. Lai Yun walked along contentedly. The book was already in his hands. The matter was over. The people from the 6 doors, in his opinion, are really good. It's so easy to use. He was even a little jealous of the Empress. Holding the silver report in his hands, Lai Yun was going to see what the Huang family members were up to. He opened the book. The 20th of the first month of the moon, Miss Huang went to see Master Chen and left 10 minutes later. On the 21st day, she went to Liu Gongzi and left after 20 minutes. On the 22nd of Miss Huang, Lai Yun stopped reading. What the hell? Is this a 100-day planner? Does it really help that someone records absolutely everything? However, he immediately decided that these records still mean something. He decided to test it with Kai. The energy gathered around his fingers. He used his power on the book. The letters began to blur and transform. The guy concluded that it was written with Kai energy, so even if someone takes this book, he will not be able to read the secret meaning without Kai possession. New suggestions appeared in the book. Lai Yun read the following. We need to start acting when the Empress leaves the palace. Perhaps she will be in the capital, which may interfere with the plan. Lai Yun was looking at a book. The Huang family is just going to get rid of the Empress while she is away. The guy thought that, although it had nothing to do with him, it would be bad if everything became more ambitious. The Empress's exit from the palace is a traditional event after her coronation. Lai Yun had no idea what methods they were going to use. He was afraid that their actions would somehow harm his wife as well. In this case, in his opinion, there was only one way out. He was just going to prevent her from participating in this event. After all, if he and Zhu Zhuli stayed away, they wouldn't be in any danger and would remain safe. Meanwhile, the Empress was looking at some document and saying that she just needed to go to the capital. The girl reported to the Empress that Master Chen Hai wanted to talk to her. The ruler agreed. Wei Chen came to Her Majesty and bowed. She didn't turn around. He reported that her plan was excellent. He said he followed her instructions and investigated everything. Now they have managed to figure out the plans of the Huang family. The girl was thinking about the instructions in question. Wei Chen talked more and more. Chen showed what he found in the Tencheng store. This dull yellow ore is called an explosive firestone. He reported that they found it there. In a single copy, this ore is not dangerous, but with a large amount of it, you can arrange a large-scale explosion. He said with a frown that he would like to suggest canceling the event. Zhu Zhuli said that no ruler has ever cancelled this event. In addition, in her opinion, it will only increase the family's arrogance even more. She said it was time for them to find out who was in charge here. The girl was thinking that if she can't even neutralize this family, then how can she guarantee everyone's safety in this case? Moreover, to see her husband during the event is just like in the actions of the novel. These thoughts made her smile, and Chen Hai was perplexed. The Empress was informed about her cakes from the royal dining room. The girl asked what kind of taste the Empress would like. She, sitting at the table over some scroll, said that she would like sweets. The girl thought, it is obvious that Her Majesty prefers cakes with sourness, so why, despite this, should they be sweet every time? The table was set with various cakes. Lai Yun's eyes sparkled as he looked at everything in front of him. He was sitting at the table, and his wife was sitting across from him. The guy, eating food, said that her culinary skills are getting better and better every time. Then he asked if she was tired of cooking so much. Remembering how the cooking process actually took place, the girl replied that she was not very tired. As if in passing, Zhu Zhuli said that she had agreed with her friends to go to see the Empress's exit tomorrow. Lai Yun was shocked. Does she want to go watch the Empress exit with her friends? Does she have any friends? Crossing her arms, the girl asked with displeasure what was wrong with that. Couldn't she have friends? Lai Yun hastened to explain, that's not what he meant. It's just that he had never met her friends before. Now he was thinking how he should be in such a situation. Zhu Zhuli rarely communicates with other people and makes friends. How can he not let her attend this event? However, he found a way out. The guy said that, in that case, he would go with them tomorrow. The girl turned away with displeasure, and Lai Yun realized that she was not at all happy with this state of affairs. It was already dark outside. Lai Yun and Zhu Zhuli were already in bed. The girl was asleep, and the guy was looking at the ceiling, thinking about something. His head kept thinking that his wife had arranged with friends to watch the parade. If he can't keep her out, he'll be there to protect her. He was also interested in the question of who could be her friends. He looked at his sleeping wife and thought that making friends was great, but he still needed to take care of her safety. Morning came. Lai Yun woke up and, yawning, turned to his wife, asking if she was up. He turned to the side, but there was no one on the other half of the bed. His cry could be heard even on the street. He overslept. Yesterday, before going to bed, he thought too much and eventually couldn't wake up on time. He was walking down the street and kept thinking about how worried he was yesterday. I had to find my wife as soon as possible. She must be here somewhere. The street was full of people, everyone crowded. Lai Yun made his way through this crowd forward. The warriors of the 6 doors carried a palanquin. Lai Yun thought that he had come just in time. The Huang family's target is the Empress. The guy just needed to make sure that his wife wasn't around. He spread his arms at his sides and began to look around. Where could Zhu Zhili go? The crowd said that, according to rumors, the new Empress is the first beauty. A woman rarely ascends to the throne, and here she is also a beauty. They say that concubines and harems are even ashamed. Lai Yun listened to the conversations and wondered if the Empress was really the first beauty. Most beauties, in his opinion, are still snakes. Lai Yun had almost reached the palanquin. He said that he had already walked so much, but he had not found his wife. Where could she have gone? The silhouette of the Empress was visible through the palanquin. Its window opened slightly due to the wind. The girl looked at Lai Yun. He turned in her direction, but could not see anything except the silhouette of the ruler. He wondered if she was looking at him. The guy frowned. Smiling, the girl thought that this fool was late. Sighing, Lai Yun said that it was already over. He thought that the danger was already over, and Zhu Zhili had probably already gone home. Suddenly, a hand reached out towards Lai Yun. He turned around, looking questioningly to the side. In the next scene, a bloodied man was crawling on the ground, wondering where he came from. He wanted to inform Mr. Chen Hai about this. However, he did not succeed, because very soon the sword pierced him. The masked man laughed, saying that the standards of the 6 doors are so low. Towering over the mountain of corpses, he concluded that the only one who is capable of anything is Chen Hai. The man turned to his warriors, told them to go ahead and not forget to take a bag with an explosive fire stone. The man took off his mask. Under it a sly smile shone on his face. This time, without a doubt, the Empress will definitely die. Chen Hai was now standing where the man who had killed all those people whose corpses were lying here had been earlier. He asked if they were late, frowning at the picture in front of him. Yunjie Yuni stood nearby and also could not remain indifferent when looking at the dead. Yunjie Yuni, sitting down, said that this murder was very cruel. The killer could have killed him with a single blow, but instead deliberately missed vital organs in order to make the victim die in agony. Chen Hai shouted that it was bad. Could it be the guy he was thinking of? Chen Hai ordered everyone to disperse and start investigating. He told them to let him know right away if they found anything suspicious. Yunjie Yuni asked Mr. Chen Hai who did this and why is he so nervous. Was it really a rebel? Chen Hai reported that it was not a rebel. According to him, it was someone even more problematic. In addition, he is well acquainted with the device of 6 doors. If it's really who he thinks it is, then he's aiming right at Her Majesty. Yunjie Yuni exclaimed, asking how such a thing was even possible if the 6 doors were absolutely impregnable. Chen Hai asked, what if this person is the creator from the system? The interlocutor asked again, is this guy the creator of the system? Chen Hai said that's exactly what it is. This is the former leader of the 6 doors. His name is Luocheng Lei. Yunjie Yuni said that when he first joined the 6 doors, he had heard about this man's cruel deeds. How strong is he then? Chen Hai said that initially he wasn't strong enough to be the leader of the 6 doors, until one day something happened. At that time, the rebels had such a huge influence that even the emperor was afraid of them. And in order to deprive the residents of the capital of the opportunity to raise uprisings, Luocheng Lei was appointed the leader of the 6 doors, and control over the capital was strengthened. Luocheng Lei was incredibly cruel and established a number of strict rules, and every time his laws were violated, he staged large-scale destruction, because of which innocent people suffered. Under him, the capital turned into a living hell. Initially, his methods actually helped to suppress uprisings. However, sooner or later this approach will outlast itself. Finally, people could not stand it. There was a large-scale riot. Then, in order to please the people, the emperor issued a decree on the execution of Luocheng Lei and sent fighters from the 6 doors, Duo King, Gang Shu, Jui Zeng and Zhu to deal with Luocheng Lei. However, Luocheng Lei's strength was simply unimaginable. He single-handedly literally smeared 4 first-class fighters. However, after that, he disappeared without a trace. Because of his deeds, people considered him a demon and nicknamed him Raksha with a jade face. The person who was reaching out to Lai Yun was Lai Zhu. She greeted her landlord. He saw a familiar face and scratched his head. The girl asked if he had also come here to eat. Eating what she had with her, the girl said that today was the day of the Empress. So many establishments arranged promotions, including giving food absolutely free of charge. Lai Yun said that Lai Zhu apparently intended to eat everything in the bag behind her back. The girl said that everything is true, because this is her holiday food. The guy was surprised to say that she really doesn't have any complexes. Liu Zhu suddenly frowned and said that it seemed that this gentleman did not understand her, because there are people much worse than her. She said that she had recently seen someone fill a huge bag with some yellow shining ore. It must be worth a lot of money. Lai Yun was taken aback when he realized what he was talking about. The yellow shining there must be the same fiery explosive stone. He immediately started asking the girl where those people had gone. She pointed her finger to the side, saying that recently they were at the entrance, they must have gone east. The guy rushed to the same place, leaving behind a girl who did not understand what was going on at all. These people, according to Lai Yun, are crazy. So much explosive firestone. Do they want the street to turn into ruins? He suddenly stopped, looking around. Where can these people be? It was simply useless to keep looking like that, because it wouldn't do any good. The guy pushed off the ground and jumped into the air, meeting with flying birds. Now he began to look at the city from a bird's eye view. He saw the palanquin of the Empress, saw the common people who walked the streets, saw the warriors of the 6 doors. Finally, his gaze came across a handful of people who were walking under the command of a man with a huge sword slung over his shoulder. He decided to stop them at all costs. Lai Yun rushed down to the ground. He was flying straight to the people he was going to stop. As he approached, Luochen Lei turned around, noticing him. Lai Yun landed right in Luochen Lei's path, blocking his path. The man just looked down at him. Lai Yun's gaze was resolute. He was looking at the opponent, and he was looking at him with an answer. Both were silent for now. Suddenly Lai Yun spoke. He told these people that they can do whatever they want with the government, but they should not use weapons of mass destruction. Luochen Lei immediately got down to business, without further ado. He swung his sword to strike. Lai Yun reacted quickly and moved. The sword strike caught only the ground, the stone on which cracked and flew apart. After some energy was formed on the ground from this impact, a shock wave followed. Dust and rocks flew in all directions. People stood, frowning and closing themselves so that they would not fly. Lai Yun was unharmed. He was still standing in front of Luochen Lei. Luochen Lei spoke up. Is it really necessary to hide again? Lai Yun was upset. He screamed, pointing his finger directly at the man. Well, can't he listen to his advice? He does not intend to dissuade them from attacking at all. Luochen Lei had no intention of listening to this guy. He swung again, preparing to strike a second blow, and when the sword was about to reach the target, Lai Yun stopped him with just one hand grabbing right on the blade. Luochen was shocked by this turn of events. He was looking at the guy in front of him. Lai Yun said that he seemed to calmly explain. Why shouldn't Luochen listen to him? He said it again. It is not necessary to use a weapon that can harm others, in particular his wife. Smiling, he concluded that Luochen didn't seem to care about his words at all. Looks like we'll have to teach him a lesson. Luochen Lei was smiling like a madman and asking what Lai Yun had just said. Had he decided to give him advice? Luochen asked if Lai Yun even knew who was standing in front of him. The Raksha with the jade faces him. The man continued to smile. His eyes were sparkling. He seemed to be distraught. Suddenly he was struck below the waist, which he clearly did not expect, because his face was distorted with pain, after which he sank to the ground, holding his hand over the place where the blow was struck. With a trembling voice, Luochen called the guy a scoundrel, exclaiming and indignant because he dares to attack him using some kind of martial art. Lai Yun held up his index finger, asking if Luochen thought he was too vulnerable. It was just an ordinary trick. He asked me to watch and learn. However, Luochen's hand took up the sword again. He was going to destroy this runt this time. He struck again, but his opponent skillfully dodged. Another swing of the sword, but Lai Yun again avoided the blow. He dodged again and again. Each time, each new blow missed the target. However, the last time was the most successful. Luochen Lei touched the guy's clothes. He concluded that Luochen could still do something. The man struck with renewed force. The blow almost reached his face. Energy was formed in the guy's hand. He repelled the attack. His legs were so heavily sunk into the ground that the stone cracked under them. However, it was worth it. Lai Yun used a shield to protect himself. Luocheng, apparently pleased with himself, asked if Lai Yun was shocked by his strength, and added that he had just started. So far, he had only fought half-heartedly. Lai Yun stood in place with his arms crossed in front of him. The guy told Luocheng not to spoil his clothes, because his wife bought it for him. The man was surprised that he was so worried about clothes. Now he was going to show this guy his real strength. He would definitely find out what real cruelty is. He didn't have time to do anything when a fist hit him right in the face. A shadow of surprise managed to slip across his face. He flew to the side, the sword fell out of his hand, and there was someone else's blood on Lai Yun's fist. The guy angrily asked what kind of performance this man had arranged in front of him. Surprised, Luocheng was bleeding. It was pouring out of his nose. He didn't understand how this could happen. Lai Yun said that it always seems to him that he is invincible in this world. This is some kind of disease. He was going to cure Luocheng of the same disease. After a short time of machinations, a lot of incomprehensible words and spilled blood, Luocheng's face looked terrible. It was all swollen, teeth were knocked out, nose was bleeding. With his left fist, Lai Yun delivered the final decisive blow. Luocheng flew into the air with a face full of suffering. And then he collapsed to the ground next to him. The brick broke under him. Luocheng's warriors thought that their boss was just a legend. No one could resist him. Where did this man come from? Their case was bad. It was worth hurrying. These people were going to leave together with a bag that was stuffed with fiery explosive ore. The guy who was standing with his back to them suddenly called them. Some turned around. He looked in their direction and asked where they would like to go. Standing in front of his opponents, Lai Yun reported that he did not have a rope. He could only cope in this way. All these people, beaten, were dug into the ground, only their heads sticking out from under it. Lai Yun called them a bunch of idiots and advised them to think about their behavior. Then he looked at the same bag of ore. He approached him, saying that these were dangerous things. The guy suddenly came up with something. "You can do this." Lai Yun threw the bag high into the sky, thus arranging a salute. This idea worked perfectly. The festive salute was a success. The guy stood and smiled, pleased with himself. The residents of the city looked at the sky, where such beauty was formed. Someone started asking if it was a holiday today. Many did not know the answer, but they liked the salute. It was very beautiful. This salute was also seen by the Empress. She wondered who launched the fireworks. Zhu suddenly thought of her husband. She didn't know where her fool had gone, and at that moment Lai Yun was thinking about whether his wife had seen this salute. There was a trampling. The guards from the 6 doors were heading in search of the bandits. Chen Hai commanded that his people would not let anyone escape. Lai Yun noticed that the people from the 6 doors had already come here. He said that it doesn't matter what kind of world it is, because everything is the same everywhere. The guy pushed off the ground and jumped into the air, hiding from this place and from the people from the 6 doors. Chen Hai found Luocheng not at his best. He looked at these people and did not understand what had happened here. How was this possible? Is this person Luocheng Lei? His gaze was riveted on the man's disfigured face, buried up to the neck in the ground. Who could have done this? They were literally buried alive. The head of the 6 doors came to the conclusion that only one person is capable of such a thing. But the fact that this person would help them is almost impossible. What happened then? Chen Hai ordered to inspect the crime scene and take people away from here. A girl, Lai Zhu, was watching this from the side unnoticed. She realized that her landlord had done it, but she did not understand where such power could have come from. And she was also interested in the reason why he was hiding this power. Was he the one she had been looking for so long? Lai Zion, the rebel leader. Lanterns were burning on the street. People were scurrying in different directions. Women, men, children, everyone went back and forth. A lot of sweets were sold, as well as a variety of toys, which the children kept staring at. Lai Yun stood in the middle of this celebration annoyed. It seemed strange to him that, even though the parade was over, he could not find a wife. Where did she go? Completely drooping. He lowered his head and scratched the back of his head, sighing heavily. Suddenly, a voice came from behind, wondering why the guy was so sad. He turned around, and there stood Zhu. She said that they seemed to have bumped into each other on the street today, and he didn't even say hello. He replied that he had walked all over the city, but he had not seen her. His wife replied that it seemed to her that his attention was focused on beauties, such as, for example, the new Empress. She asked if he had heard rumors that she was the most beautiful girl in the world. Lai Yun said it wasn't like that at all. How could the Empress compare with his wife? His wife is the most beautiful girl in the world. In addition, he added that during the parade, the Empress was behind the curtain, so who even knows what she looks like? Suddenly, someone's solemn voice rang out, saying that this person knows what the Empress looks like. Zhu and Lai Yun looked towards the girl who said it. Lai Zhu said that even though she is already full, but it's still not enough, because she is a famous detective who needs to eat more. The girl shouted her name and started pointing her index finger in the direction of the spouses. That Lai Zhu again. It seems that both were not particularly happy about her appearance. Lai Yun asked if she was eavesdropping. The girl, coming closer, said that the fellow landlord was very stupid. They have not yet managed to find out what the Empress looks like. However, the truth, according to Lai Zhu, is that she is not the most beautiful girl in the world at all. On the contrary, she's just ugly. That's why she was behind the curtain. Zhu Zhuli was amazed. She was only called ugly and ugly. Lai Zhu found it strange that Zhu Zhuli suddenly looked like she was going to kill her. Lai Zhu had a bad feeling. The next day, all the food that Lai Zhu had collected at the feast was confiscated by the people from the 6 doors. Zhu Zhuli said that Lai Zhu was full of nonsense because she had seen the Empress herself, and she was not ugly at all. Lai Yun thought that his wife was talking about having a meeting with friends, wasn't it? When she could see the Empress from afar, Lai Yun saw something that immediately interested him. He bought this sweet and handed it to his wife, telling her to eat it and calm down. The girl said it was too sweet, so he should eat it himself. Lai Yun smiled awkwardly, remembering that his wife didn't seem to like sweets. He tried to crack this treat a little, and then handed it to his wife again, saying that everything was in perfect order, because mountain plants give sourness. The girl took it and decided to try. She closed her eyes, tucking her hair behind her ear, and ate one ball. Lai Yun asked her how she tasted. Wasn't it delicious? After that, the guy turned to Lai Zhu, who somehow ended up here again. He casually asked where she got the glasses. She told everything that had happened to her. A child had just fallen from the sky. He crashed into her, said all sorts of things, of which she did not understand anything, and, in the end, ran away and forgot his glasses. The man from the 6 doors suddenly ordered everyone to leave this area. He said that a murder had occurred, so people should not interfere with the investigation. Lai Yun thought about it. If this is true, then 6 doors are very busy right now. Zhu Zhuli suddenly looked somewhere to the side. People there sat near the water and looked at the fish swimming in it. She was staring, so Lai Yun asked if she wanted to play it. Zhu Zhuli replied that this game is exclusively for children, and she is not interested in this at all. It was obvious that she was embarrassed. Lai Yun took her by the hand and led her along. He said that, in that case, he wanted to play himself, and she needed to go with him. The girl looked at her husband in surprise, agreeing with what he was saying. Now they were looking at the fish. The girl was holding in her hands an object with which to catch a fish, and seemed absolutely focused on the game. Lai Yun told her to look carefully and then act. However, this time she failed. The fish slipped out and returned to the water, splashing the girl's face. She looked ahead in frustration, frowning. Lai Yun said that she is very impatient, but don't worry about it. The guy took her by the hand, saying that he would help her and she would definitely catch a fish. In one of her hands was a vessel with water, and in the other, the object with which they catch fish. Her husband was holding her by this hand, standing behind her. Together they reached out with the object to one of the fish in the water. The guy at a certain moment told her to exhale. The fish jumped. It was a good moment to catch her. As a result, there was a fish in their vessel with water, which they caught together. Zhu Zhuli walked contentedly, and Lai Yun smiled looking at her. He said he didn't expect her to have such a childish side. She replied that she was just a little curious. Lai Yun touched the girl's hair with a small twisted towel, which made her a little surprised. He said her clothes were wet, so they needed to go home. Smiling, Zhu Zhuli agreed with his suggestion. They walked down the street together, holding hands. Suddenly the guy came up with the idea that he tusk and did not see his wife's friends. And it also sounded very unconvincing that the girl said she saw him, but she didn't even call out to him. In other words, he told his wife out loud that it was not easy to make friends with her. She looked at him questioningly. The guy asked her not to worry, saying that he would not delve into this topic. The gate of a house. A man was sitting at a table, and a guy was standing opposite him, and another man was sitting next to him, bending down in front of the elder. Hong Lu spoke up. He asked if the person he was addressing had any idea how important those reports were to them. If they fall into the hands of the Empress, then they will all be finished. The guy, whose name is Huang Duanzi, replied that he understood everything perfectly. He also added that he had selected the best people to investigate. Number 9, according to him, is one of the most high-class killers. The girl was standing on the roof of the building. It had been dark for a long time. The moon was shining behind her. It was Luo Feiyan, aka Blood Rose. Zhu Zhuli approached Lai Yun and it seemed to him that she was somehow too active today. The girl asked Lai Yun what happened to his clothes, because as she remembered, the things that he was wearing now were her first gift to him. Lai Yun tried to justify himself by saying that he got in time to honor the new Empress. He was a little careless and accidentally scratched himself. Zhu Zhuli said with disbelief that since this was the case, he should be more careful next time. Lai Yun thought that it was very nice and it was good that he went to the night market with her. Now he felt much better. Zhu Zhuli then said that as punishment for this, they were depriving him of pocket money for 2 months. These words did not make Lai Yun very happy. In the morning, when Lai Yun woke up in his bed, the sun was already shining brightly and he stretched sleepily and yawned. Lai Yun looked tenderly at the girl who was sleeping next to him and thought that she must have been very tired yesterday, since she was still sleeping. He looked attentively at her beautiful face and thought that she looked incredibly beautiful in a dream. Suddenly Lai Yun shifted his gaze to the lips of the sleeping girl, and he had a strong desire to kiss her, and he wondered if he could do that. Lai Yun slowly approached the sleeping girl's face and was about to kiss her, but she suddenly opened her eyes. Lai Yun was slightly embarrassed and confused, so he offered the girl a kiss. She did not answer him, but only frowned at his face. Lai Yun and Zhu Zhuli went to eat after sleeping. Lai Yun said that his wife was really wonderful, and that the slap she gave him in the morning made him wake up instantly. Zhu Zhuli was still sitting with a displeased face, and Lai Yun told her that there was no need to always be so sensitive and laughed. But Zhu Zhuli said that she was acting like this not only because of what happened in the morning, but also because Lai Yun is very strange and behaves strangely, and she really does not like it. Then Lai Yun said that from now on he would be honest with her always and would never kiss her secretly again. He approached her face and said he could kiss her right now. The girl was slightly embarrassed by such words, and when they were almost kissing, another girl appeared, who greeted them and asked what they were doing here. Lai Yun replied that they were not doing anything at all. Lai Yun then asked what this girl had forgotten here, if it was possible that she didn't have any more money for food. But the girl solemnly said that everything is fine and she just works here, because work is very important for a person. Lai Yun said that he always thought that the boss here wouldn't have the guts to hire this girl. The girl replied that those who try their best are always lucky, and then added that she just begged him for a very long time to accept her. Lai Yun said that it was not worth expecting anything else from her and smiled politely. The girl asked the visitors what they would like to order. She asked them to speak quickly, but not to order too many dishes, otherwise she might not remember everything. Lai Yun said that in that case, they would like to try all the specialties of this institution. The girl was surprised and delighted, and then said that Lai Yun is not like other people at all. Lai Yun said that there was absolutely nothing wrong with this, because they had already come to this restaurant anyway. Zhu Zhuli agreed with her husband. The girl left the visitors and said that their order would be brought to them soon, but for now they only need to wait a little. Lai Yun was looking out the window at the Wang family's house. He thought about why the Wang family decided to join forces with the rebels, whether it was possible that they did it for the sake of the White Jade Seal. Suddenly, Zhu Zhuli told Lai Yun that the capital has been very restless lately, so he should be more careful. Lai Yun smiled sweetly and asked if his wife was really worried about him so much. But Zhu Zhuli said that if he suddenly disappears, it will be very difficult for her to find another person who will earn money for her. Suddenly, Lai Yun saw the killer below, although he wasn't exactly sure if it was her or not. She had a great shape, a confident pose, and a sense of strength emanated from her. The murder was carefully concealed, so Lai Yun decided that no one but himself would be able to figure it out. Lai Yun decided that it was not worth making a fuss, but he needed to somehow warn the girl. Lai Yun turned away from the window when the killer turned around and Zhu Zhuli asked him what was there. Lai Yun replied that according to his opinion, this girl is very far from his wife and it seems that she is injured. He also added that he has not seen her face yet, but he doubts that it will compare with Zhu Zhuli's face. Then Zhuli slapped him again. Lai Yun said it was time for her to stop slapping him. The killer, meanwhile, was walking down the street and caught the unscrupulous glances of passers-by. She couldn't figure out who the murderous aura belonged to, which made her feel like she was about to be crushed like an ant. She decided that this might be a warning to her. The killer thought that if it wasn't for the reward she was offered for one case, she would have escaped from this terrible place long ago. The girl had to find the lost reports and find the young man who was last in the store. The girl thought that it was much easier to find someone than to kill. Besides, his location was already known. She decided that if it wasn't some kind of monster like what she had just felt, then everything should be fine.